Hey guys, I'm Adam Caesar. This is Project Black T-shirt, the channel where we take a look at new release horror movies or re-release horror movies and then pair them with horror fiction or horror reading that I think you will enjoy if you like those movies. So if you want to see more videos like this, please hit like and please subscribe and go check out my other videos. It's kind of a real mix of the things we do here, but almost always one horror book and one horror movie per video. Usually you get a whole lot more suggestions, but please check them out. This week, I was coming up a little bit dry on what to talk about on the show, and wouldn't you know it, I got a shipment from the mailman that I've been waiting for like almost 2 months at this point. It is my shipment from the Vinegar Syndrome Halfway to Black Friday sale, which is an annual sale that they do. It's one of their bigger sales of the year. Vinegar Syndrome, if you don't know, they are a horror cult sleaze exploitation DVD and Blu-ray label. They do some really great work. These are my shelves there. I am a collector of their stuff and have been since their very first Kickstarter. Since before they had like a formal web store, they were doing a Kickstarter for the Lost Films, Hirsch Gordon Lewis. Contributed that. So I've been with these guys, I think it's like 5 years now. A much bigger than usual haul from Vinegar Syndrome because they do this sale where they put exclusives up, and they're kind of timed exclusives of like, all right, well, sale starts at midnight or whenever. We're only going to print so many of these with these slip cases that they do, these beautiful, very vibrant, very meaty slip cases that they kind of limit. And the releases themselves this time are limited. So I ordered those, and I ordered a bunch of other things, some things that I was missing, trying to fill some holes in my collection, some stuff that I've wanted to check out for a little while. During the sale, the prices are the best they are kind of all year. So I went a little crazy, and we're gonna open this up and walk through what I ordered, and then I guess I'm gonna pause the camera and then go watch a movie or two, and then talk about the movies I watched. First, the unboxing part. Always careful. Gonna retitle this Epic Fail. Nerd cuts off hand. Trying to show the cutting action. All right, and you open it up, and some packing paper, the packing slip, and then there we go. Got the movies. All right, let's go through these one by one. Now, I don't know a whole bunch about most of these films because they're just kind of, I won't say impulse buys, but at this point I've kind of come to trust that even if I'm not gonna 100% love everything that Vinegar Syndrome puts out, between the features and the transfers and just the sheer weirdness of some of the things that they choose to like do these beautiful 2K and 4K scans of, it's always worth the gamble, and you always get kind of a nice artifact for your shelf. I've like very rarely, I don't think ever, resold a Vinegar Syndrome release. So we'll start from like the non-special editions. I grabbed their Vinegar Syndrome catalog of film 2018. I don't have the one from last year. I don't have the 2017 one, but this seems like a pretty nice thing. It was $2. I guess the corner's a little creased, but you can't fault them for that. They do a good job packing things. It's basically just every movie up until they printed this that has been released. It's kind of a guide to all their movies. It's got like a whole guide. It's got like a still, at least one still, and the cover for each release. So looking forward to digging into that. Even though it's kind of basically what's on the website, but in a book form, because look at me, I'm this guy. First is one of their drive-in classics. I actually made a boo-boo and ordered ordered one that I already had. So I kind of emailed them, and they were like, yeah, we can switch that for you. So this is Teenage Zombies and Revenge of the Virgins, two kind of black and white programmers, drive-in programmers from 1959 and 1957, the year my parents were born, so this is going to be some fun stuff. Next up was a recommendation. While I was like kind of in my ordering spree, or it's a communal fun thing to do. I was texting with my buddy Matt Serafini. It was actually very early in the morning, and I was like, oh, this one, should I get this? And he was telling me, because he's much deeper into it than I am, and I'm pretty deep into it, but he said Malibu High was a good one to check out. Seems like it has a kind of teen comedy plus crime vibe to it. Sounds good to me. 1978, good vintage. Next is a double feature, but one of which a movie I've actually seen and already own, but I enjoy, and this was super cheap during the sale, so I wanted to pick it up. But this is Blood Mania and Point of Terror. Both star Peter Carpenter, early 70s. Yeah, I have Point of Terror back here somewhere, but I'm gonna have this old Scorpion DVD, even though it has this wonderful green case, kind of outmoded now. But it's basically if you like made a like pseudo giallo TV variety show, lounge singer kind of star to it. And Blood Mania I don't know much about. Next is Psycho Killer, another 70s film I haven't seen, but it is stacked to the max with talent. You got Aldo Ray, Julie Adams, I think Graydon Clark is in this. Yeah, so already you're talking about some people that I want to see in a movie with this poster, this gorgeous poster. So Psychic Killer, another quick kind of on a limb pickup, because I'm finding that Vinegar Syndrome's back catalog has like kind of less and less things as they do these sales, that it's like, oh, I already have that, or I picked that up at a con, or whatever. But this was another recommendation from Matt, so I picked it up. And last but not least, for the older releases, and this one's a very old release from before they started doing the clear cases, before Vinegar Syndrome kind of started doing their like trademark clear cases. This is Graduation Day, and this is a high school slasher that was, I believe, yeah, it was a Trauma acquisition, originally like a Trauma release, not a Trauma in-house movie, but a Trauma acquisition. And I have pretty much almost all of the movies that Vinegar Syndrome has released through that, whatever deal they made with Trauma. And a lot of them are really great. I talked about Luther the Geek in my other Vinegar Syndrome kind of countdown video. There's Nightmare Weekend. And more recently they did Bloodhook, which was another... Bloodhook was another kind of Trauma acquisition. And I think they kind of released the uncut version of the film. And if you haven't seen Bloodhook, just a quick recommendation, because I haven't seen most of the movies I'm talking about, but Bloodhook is amazing. If you like slashers at all, especially if you like regional slashers, especially if you like kind of, we've talked about the like hangout slasher, where like not a lot happens for a good amount of the film. It's filmed like by a Wisconsin lake, and they use like a lot of like kind of local flavor in this giant like fiberglass muskie, which is like a kind of like toothed fish, like a barracuda looking thing, which is like the fish that they're fishing for in Bloodhook. But a fisherman themed killer who like is like hooking kids and pulling them off boats and stuff like that. But it is a bonkers great movie, and Vinegar Syndrome's release of it is incredible. So well worth checking out. Not to derail the unboxing too much. But that was Graduation Day. Looking forward to that. I might even spring to grab some clear cases so I can change this shelf all to clear. That's the level of fiddliness that I have. And if you've watched the channel for any amount of time, that shouldn't surprise you. All right, and now we have the slipcover limited editions. I think these are like the sum total of April, May, and June's big releases. Or at least the big releases that I wanted. There's a bunch of stuff that they release that, for whatever reason, is not up my alley, or is cost prohibitive, or I didn't feel like having in my collection. So I didn't pick up some stuff, but let's start with, I think, the older one. This was, I think, April, but this is Bloodsuckers from Outer Space, which I have not seen, but I know is a kind of Texas-filmed, regional, low-budget oddity, and look at that cover, so up my alley. I especially like regional films. I like movies made outside of Hollywood. There is just a certain charm to them. Gotta be careful putting these down so I don't harm the beautiful slipcases. Next is, these are the two releases that were kind of special for the sale. They were kept secret until the sale started. They were like little teasers about what they were. But this is Pets, a quote-unquote drive-in classic newly restored from 35mm Elements and on Blu-ray for the first time. And Deadly Daphne's Revenge, which I know is a movie that I, at one point or another, had a version of, because it's another one of those Chroma acquisition films that they'd kind of released in like budget packs in Best Buy way back in the day. But Vinegar Syndrome has done a beautiful job, like with these. I don't know if you can see it, but there's like some gloss on certain parts of the slipcover. Really, really nice. This is the one that I think they said they're not reprinting at all. Pets they will reprint in a kind of regular, less limited edition, less feature stacked version, but Deadly Daphne's Revenge, I think they said they're never ever going to reprint. I don't know whether that's a legal thing, like they only have the rights to print so many of them, or they know they're not going to sell that many, so they wanted to make it a kind of a special thing. But during the sale, this was kind of the big thing to get. Last but not least, these were June's releases. The last two things in the box, Blood Theater and Grave Robbers. Blood Theater is also a double feature, even though they don't say it, they don't put it on the packaging or the limited edition packaging. But Blood Theater comes with The Visitants, which is another film by director Rick Sloan. And if Rick Sloan is not familiar with you, or if you don't know the authorship of Rick Sloan, all I have to say is Hobgoblins, and you probably know who I'm talking about. But Grave Robbers, I don't know much about either. It sounds salacious and seedy and wonderful, and look at this great cover. But Blood Theater, I've been looking to check out for a while, and The Visitants, just hearing about it, I'm kind of most intrigued by that. So when I pause the camera, I'm most likely going to come back and talk to you about this disc. But that was the unboxing. That's the halfway to Black Friday sale, Vinegar Syndrome, what they released and what they put out. So I'm going to go watch some movies, and I'm going to talk to you about them, and then I'm probably going to come with a book recommendation. And we're back. So, while I was gone, I shaved, and I watched not one but two movies. I watched 1984's Blood Theater by Rick Sloan, and 1987's The Visitants, which you can see the reverse art there. Vinegar Syndrome didn't turn this into kind of like a traditional double feature where they do like two posters in one, but they did like the newly commissioned art for Blood Theater, and then on the flip side is the original theatrical poster, which, yes, it did play theaters, of The Visitants. Now, do I recommend these films? That very much depends on the kind of person you are. If you like Mystery Science Theater, if you like films that are kind of inexplicable, and in some ways, like if you think about how they were made, or why they were made, or how everyone got involved, and you're just like, this is really bizarre, and like it makes your head hurt a little while you're watching it, as you try to kind of do that mental math calculation, then Blood Theater and The Visitants are for you. If you're familiar with Hobgoblins, think of Hobgoblins as kind of almost the slick, higher budgeted Rick Sloan movies, because he made these two. They go kind of first, second, third. It was Blood Theater is his very first movie. I believe he made it. He mentioned in the introduction, I believe he made it in film school, using rented equipment from film school. And then The Visitants made shortly after he left school. So we think he's like 20 or 21 when he made Blood Theater, which is very incredibly impressive when shot on film. Takes place in an old Hollywood theater, which they do get a good amount of mileage out of. They kind of double it as multiple theaters, or like they do, like, it was an old-timey stage theater. In this pre-credit sequence, the theater owner goes nuts, burns down, even though there's no real fire effects. We don't see any fire. We just see a lot of smoke. He burns down the theater with people in it, kills everyone inside. A kind of multiplex, a seedy kind of multiplex theater chain buys the theater, tricks their kind of dopiest employees into going to run the theater. Terror and hilarity ensues. So that's Blood Theater, and The Visitants is a riff on like 50s and 60s sci-fi, where we have these very Rocky Horror-esque aliens coming down to Earth, and trying to blend in. Inexplicably, it's like a 30-year mission, so they arrive in the 50s, and then we get up to kind of present day in 1987 without much of a, like, I was like, for a little while, I'm like, wait a second, are we still in the 50s? Like, even though everything's 80s right now? But there isn't much of a plan that these aliens have other than to, like, quip and be funny. A riff-raff and magenta, like, riff. Strangely, I probably prefer the Visitants, even though it is probably the less genre of the two, less kind of exploitable elements. Blood Theater is your kind of normal boobs and blood slasher movie to an extent, but it does have that weird, dislocated, Ed Woodish type feel to the production. But Mary Warnoff is in Blood Theater, and she's like chewing scenery, and she's really great, and really her performance is so off the charts because it's so different than the actors around her. But it's great just for her. These are bad quote unquote movies. In the introduction and outro and the Q&A that they put on the disc when they showed these two films on film in at the New Beverly, they basically introduced them as like, okay, these are bad movies, with the director there and his full consent saying these are bad movies. But there is something super charming about movies that are made for like, I think he said the budget was for the Visitants was like less than $10,000, like $8,000, which is unbelievable and kind of unheard of. So there is a huge amount of charm to these films, but they're just not for everyone. Don't go buying this disc expecting, you know, you're going to be blown away by horror movies you never heard of. You haven't heard of these probably for good reason, and that's not the way that Vinegar Syndrome, all their releases go. I don't want to misrepresent the company or the label, but they do all kinds of stuff. They put out all kinds of stuff, and it is always a trip. And sometimes they're like completely unheralded gems, like Bloodhook, like we talked about. Sometimes they're cult classics, like legitimately great movies that I love, like Penitentiary. And then sometimes they release stuff like Blood Theater, and they did a nice disc of Hobgoblins too. So they're in the Rick Sloan business for the long haul. But I very much recommend this. I haven't listened to the commentaries yet, but there are 3 different ones. There's like a MST3K type like comedy one, and then there are 2 with Rick Sloan, one on The Visitants, one on Blood Theater. So this is a disc that I'm going to revisit, which feels weird because the movies are so odd and so, in some ways inept, in some ways super charming, in some ways like a laugh a minute, and in some ways kind of interminably boring. But very glad I have them. Kudos to Vinegar Syndrome for putting these films out and putting them out in such a lavish edition. Transfer looks great, movies look great. As great as they're gonna look. That was my unboxing. That was the movie that I chose to just kind of randomly watch and talk to you guys about. And real quick, because I don't want to do like a full book recommendation because we've talked too much. I've talked a lot in this video. I do want to get it more into recommending comics. And because The Visitants has like one direct reference to Archie and a couple kind of indirect references to Archie and kind of just 50s and 60s malt shop type horror, I cannot recommend enough Vampironica from Archie Comics. The 1st and 2nd issues are out now. It is co-written by brother and sister team Greg and Meg Smallwood, and it is illustrated by Greg Smallwood. He has a really cool kind of almost sketchy, watercolory like style. I'm not doing it justice, but the art is beautiful in these. It's basically posits what if Veronica from the Smallville Archie universe were Blade-type vampire who hunts vampires. It is gory and weird and funny and has these gorgeous kind of guest covers. I got both the variant covers because I really like them. But well worth picking up if you head to a comic book store. Like their Jughead werewolf book, like their Archie zombie book, like Sabrina. This is under their Archie horror banner, but probably one of my favorite books from that banner, right next to Sabrina. I hope it runs for a long time, or at least gets to kind of see out this storyline that they want to do, because the first 2 issues are great. If you like this video, please hit like. If you really like this video, please subscribe. Tell me down in the comments what your favorite Vinegar Syndrome releases. Tell me if you want me to talk about any of the films that I unboxed, if you'd want a specific review for them. If you want to find out more about me or want to check out my books, there's a link down in the description that'll get you a free couple short stories, a novel sample. I write horror novels, novellas, short stories, and you can read them. You can listen to the audiobooks. You can, more importantly, review them on Amazon because that's what helps me out. And that's about it. I'm done shelling. I'll see you next week.